In 36 years of tattooing, man, you have to improvise your stuff. Back in the days, there was no supplier, so I improvised. I got the foot switch and the clip cord, just made pretty much out of anything. It's just a little bit of inventive creativity and persistence, you know. You can get to do whatever you want, so it's up to you, you know. This is just a demonstration of how I do it. It's not about teaching you how to do it, but if you can learn from this, hey, you're smart enough, congratulations. If you're not, sorry, man, you know, knowledge, it took me 35 years.
To make a foot switch, you can do it with metals, with shoe horses, plaques with brass or any metal screws, some insulation plastic, maybe any plastic you use as an insulation, you know. Sometimes I use bottles like to do flat washers, rounds and stuff. I'm gonna show you how. And then this iron, I'm gonna use the cord of it. It doesn't work, so I'm just gonna use the cord for it. And also I use a little foam plug. That's the regular size for my power supplies. So now let's see, with all these little pieces of things, we're gonna make it. We gotta cut a piece of a plaque with it. Most of the time I just cut a piece like that to put them at the bottom, and I decide to use this metal. I find this in a yard sale for a few cents. And you see the piece of brass, it cost me like $21 and some cents. So we mark where we want the holes to be. That's pretty safe when you get to drill, so they don't slip and you don't get the unwanted hole and unwanted place. You see? We have the marks. Now we put both pieces together, clamp them with a press, and make sure they're straight so you don't have to screw up, you know. So now the hole have to be a little bigger than the screw because I'm gonna put tape insulation on it, so it's keep a space enough big enough to fit the screw with insulation. So you see, we use both sides like that. So we drill both pieces at the same time. Then the insulation, this is all your own discretion, you know. This is kind of thick though, it's a lot of tension there. So anyway, you just have to cut it in half. Pretty soft material. Okay, so now I have two pieces. You see, so it's still a little thick, so I can grind it down a little bit just to make it to the size that you want it. You can even use any other plastics, you know. I find these pieces of it was a separator, and it worked out good. You see how I make it thin and make it in an angle. Okay, so then after I drill it, you see, just press it together and drill so that the holes will be perfect. You see the lines of pencil on the plug. I'm gonna cut those corners too. Okay, so now we have the parts. Let's see. We gotta cut all the leftovers of the drill bits. All those things, they may cut the insulation, or it's possible that they won't allow you to do work right, make short circuit or something. So you don't want no leftovers where you can get cut. For the insulation in the center, I make a little gap in the middle, a little notch, which that's where the cord is going to be, so it won't be like a bump on it. And before you put the cord, just make sure that you do tight those, make a little nut, and that will hold the strength of the pulling of the cord. You see, you put it right on the notch, and once that, when you pull, that thing will be really strong, and there won't be a chance of you to pull those off when you work with it. So then we peel the tips, make them longer to make it double. I always fold them half and then twist them again. And for the insulation, like I said, I do little pieces of anything could be as insulation, whatever, even a milk jar or medicine thing. And you see, I just got the little, they don't need to be perfect circles, but we're gonna need 4, 2 on the bottom and 2 on the top, so we can insulate the flat washers with the screw. Okay, so now we have them. So we put them all together so we can drill them all at once. So that way will be the same size hole. In this time, the hole is exactly the same size of the screw, so we'll be tight. So we throw the flat washer first, the metal one, and then we throw the insulation one, so that will avoid for the screw to touch the part, and then with a little piece of electrical tape insulating the screw, you see, just twist it, and now we have insulation on the flat washer and the screw, so it's not gonna touch no metal. So you do the same thing with the other one, the flat washer, metal, and then you use the plastic one, you see, then you put the tape, so that way you have two insulated screws ready to go. You see the little bolts. So then when you put the center part, make sure the one wire goes underneath and the other one goes on top. So that's how they're going to be contact with each other, one with the plaque and one with the metal. So now let's proceed to do it. Sometimes you just got to kind of loosen them up a little bit, put in make sure they're straight and hold them together, and then you put the nuts on them. But don't tie them all the way, because sometimes the cord needs to be tied. So you do the insulation washer first, and then you put the flat washer with metal at the end, and then you put the nut over it. See? So that way you insulate the nut and from the plaque. So now with little tweezers, you just have to see that the wire will be in place, because you can still see one that is kind of moving. So you don't want it to be touching anything else around, but the side that you want it to be in touch with. See? Now you got it all straight. You see? So there is no wire showing up touching anything else. So now let's tie it. See? I always double make sure that everything is in place before I over tie them, because sometimes you make a short circuit with the bolt, the screw on one side of the metal or the plaque, and then is when you have problems when they don't work. It will be like a permanent contact. It's not too bad. So now we have this part out. We just have to, you see, cutting the little leftovers of the insulation washers that we did with the medicine bottle. So, you know, it's just aesthetic. You know, you can decorate them, you can fix them, you can leave them just like that, whatever is your preference. You see, like I did already, cut the metal plaque from the top around the coin, the metal. And for the other end, make sure you peel the wires and get the little sleeve of the connector first. You see, because man, if you forget that piece, pain in the butt. So, and then after that, you just make sure you get those tips the length that you need them. One is a little shorter than the other. Then once you screw them over and tie them, make sure they're pretty tight. Sometimes it's better if you solder them, so that makes sure that they're not going to be pulled off or anything, because bolts sometimes they come off, little screws. And electrical tape in the middle to insulate that both ends of the connector. Sometimes they twist, they move, they pull. It could be a short circuit, and it's hard to find only until you take this apart. But if you do that, you will avoid that problem. Now we put the back the sleeve. And pretty much done. Now we just cut the screws on the back and round the little plaque. Now let's see with my son's power supply. Yep. You see? Now it's a working foot switch, improvised with leftovers, pieces of metal and a cord. And this switch is one of the ones that I did when I was way younger, back in '91. I've been doing this in '70s, but this is the last one from the ones that I still have when I was with Bert Rodriguez in Santa Rosa, California. You see, you can always decorate them any way you want, engrave whatever you want on them. So this is what I did. And this is a war foot switch, man. This has been with me for years, travel all over doing biker shows and stuff. So you see, you can be creative, man, pretty much make them out of anything. You see, and it works fine. You see?